students, whenever I look at the Rubik cube, it inspires me to look at the problem from multiple perspectives, but the solution is always the same. Similarly, dear students, we have different cyber laws worldwide, but all are originated from UNCITRAL, that is United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, that is also known as United Nations Model Law. And today's session is focused on cyber laws internationally, which is well relevant. Now, let us discuss the session structure of today. Initially, we will discuss the origin of model law from United Nations. We will also see the need of cyber law worldwide. We will also look at the international bodies and then the main features of cyber laws of leading countries in the world. At the last, we will look at the common observation and conclusion. Now, let us come to the first point. What is United Nations model law? What is its need and background? My dear students, in many countries, the existing legislation governing communication and storage of information were inadequate and outdated because they did not contemplate the use of electronic commerce. Then few countries lacked in legislation for dealing with e-commerce. As a whole, result in uncertainty as to legal nature and validity of information presented in digital form. Inadequate legislation at the national level created obstacles to international trade. The purpose of this model law was to offer national legislator a set of internationally accepted rules as to how a number of such legal obstacles may be removed and how a more secure legal environment may be created for what has become as electronic commerce. United Nations model law was adopted on 30th January 1997. United Nations model law, now the next question arises, why should we be aware about it? Why we should have a thought about it in great detail. Now, I am solving this problem with the help of few facts and figures. Model law on e-commerce, all the countries enacted IT Act 2000 in their respective countries who were the member nations to United Nations model law as well as United Nations worldwide. China was the first country in the world which has adopted international model law, and then it was followed by Netherlands in Europe. The Act facilitated e-commerce and e-governance in the country. The Act also established a regulatory framework and lays down punishment regime for different cybercrime and offences. Now, next questions arises, why should we be aware about it time to time? Now, UN model law recommends that all states give favourable consideration to the model law when they enact or revise their laws in view of the need for uniformity of all law applicable to alternative to paper-based method of communication and storage of information. For example, when India has launched IT Act 2000, it has improved and made sufficient changes in Indian Evidence Act, IPC and RBI Act as well. Now, United Nations model law cannot be reinforced without international regulatory bodies. I am giving you the briefings of few international bodies. As to the international agreement, there are many international bodies that aim to regulate cyberspace. Among the prominent initiatives are that of UN itself that we have discussed, then the Council of Europe, that is also known as EC Council, and it has started from Budapest Convention. Most of the European countries are signatories to the Council of European Convention on Cybercrime and assign greater focus on multilateral regional alliances rather than on establishing bilateral cooperation with some selected countries. Apart from 45 members of the Council of Europe, the Budapest Convention has been adopted by Canada, Japan, South Africa and the United Nations. The India also follows the EC guidelines time to time. Now, my dear students, as we all know, the title of today's session is Cyber Law Internationally. When we talk about international cyber law, we must know that we should discuss the leading economies of the world which has a great impact on framing cyber law worldwide. So, we have tried in this session to highlight the various features of leading international law of the world, so that you can have a clear understanding and comparison in the concluding session. Let us start with United Kingdom, UK. When it comes to UK law, there are significant number of acts. There are few list of related acts which I would like to quote you. It has also been displayed on the screen. First is Computer Misuse Act, then it is followed by Serious Crime Act. There is EU directives, there is a Terrorism Act 2000. Now, there is an act called Regulation of Investigatory Power Act 2000, and there is a very elaborated Telecommunication Act which talks about lawful business practices. And most interesting part is Data Communication Act, which is known as DPA, and it was launched in the year 1998, and the Human Rights Act, which talks about privacy, and at the last we have Extradition Act, which is in the international context. Let us see few highlights of the same. The law under Computer Misuse Act describes different computer misuse offences and outline and penalties for the act, and it was expanded in the year 2006. In 2012, Home Office of UK drafted a new communication data bill which authorized the state to monitor internet communication and require communication companies to store users' online history data for 12 months, that is 1 year. Computer hacking being considered a terrorist act in UK by law. This is reference to the Terrorism Act 2000, which is in regard to the disruption of computer system. In this act, terrorism means the use of threat of action where the use of threat is designed to influence the government or to intimidate the public or a section of public, and the use or threat is made for the purpose of advancing a political, religious, racial or a ideological cause. Now, there is a regulation of Investigatory Power Act, which is another law. In short, it is known as RIPA in international context. RIPA is a long and complex act which covers many things, including recording transmission for legal purpose. Another law relevant to the interception and recording of communication is the Telecommunication Law. This effectively covers the legalities of a company recording transmission for business practices. Additionally, the Data Protection Act, commonly known as DPA, is relevant here as it covers processing of information relating to individual, including obtaining, holding, use or disclosure of such information. So, when it comes to the monitoring and recording of telecommunication in transit, a company must consider the DPA. For example, few principles of Data Protection Acts are, I have tried to shown you here. For example, personal data shall be processed fairly and lawfully. Personal data shall be obtained only for one or more specified and lawful purposes and shall not be further processed in any manner which is not allowed. For example, if you have taken my medical record, it will be only used for medical research, not for any other purpose beyond that. If you use it, it will be totally illegal activity. Now, let us come to Human Rights Acts 1998, how it impacted the IT Act or cyber law related things. You know, as one of the protection this act afford is a person's right to respect for private and family life. Therefore, you may consider that a person who illegally monitor a person's communication is in fact breaching their human right through the right to respect for privacy. Now, this is highly valued in UK. My dear friends, we have seen major highlights of UK law. Now, let us discuss one of the cyber crime scenario and their strategy in the most developed economy of the world, which has an impact, that is United States of America. The United States cyber security laws and privacy system is the oldest, most robust and effective in the world. The state's privacy system relies more on post hoc government enforcement and private litigation. Currently, cyber security regulation comprises of directives from executive branch and legislation from Congress that safeguards IT and computer system. The purpose of cyber security regulation is to force companies and organizations to protect their system and information from cyber attacks. Now, one such law is Consumer Privacy Protection Act 2017. The Consumer Privacy Protection Act 2017 aims at securing the personal information of customers to avoid identity theft and to update citizens and organizations regarding security breaches and prevent the misuse of sensitive user information. There is another law called Federal Government Regulation, as USA is a federal country. There are three main federal cyber security regulations. These are, number one is 1996 Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is commonly known in cyber world is HIPAA, which is a very common term in internet world. And in 1999 Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and in 2002 there was Homeland Security Act, which included the Federal Information Security Management Act, that is commonly known as FISMA. Now, my dear student, these three regulations mandate that healthcare organizations, financial institutions and federal agencies should protect their system and information. Recent federal laws in a recent effort to strengthen its cyber security laws. The federal government is introducing several new cyber security laws as well as amending the older ones for a better security ecosystem. Now, I am giving you more updates. There are 3-4 more laws, and one is CISA, that is Cyber Security Information Sharing Act. Its objective is to improve cyber security in the United States through enhanced sharing of information about cyber security threats. The second law is Cyber Security Enhancement Act 2014. It provides an ongoing voluntary public-private partnership to improve cybersecurity and strengthen cybersecurity research and development, as well as workforce development and education through public awareness and well preparedness. There is a Federal Exchange Data Breach Notification. This act was launched in 2015. The bill requires a health insurance exchange to notify that each individual whose personal data has been acquired as a result of a breach of security of any system must be notified, and all these detail has to be maintained under this law. Now, there are several state laws which is passed by United States. State government also have taken sincere measures to improve cybersecurity by increasing public viability of firms with weak security. For example, in 2003, California passed the Notice of Security Breach Act, which requires that any company that maintains personal information of California citizen and has a security breach must disclose the detail of the event. The security breach regulation punishes firms for their cybersecurity failures as well, while giving them the freedom to choose how to secure their system as well. Now, going by the looks of the United States cybersecurity laws and regulation, it is pretty evident that the government has been working to introduce stricter laws to equip organizations to secure the data from the latest cyber threats. Dear students, it is again important to know what are the cyber laws in the manufacturing of the world, that is China. The cybersecurity laws of the People's Republic of China is known as Chinese Cybersecurity Law. It was enacted to increase data protection, data localization and cybersecurity in the interest of national security. The law was basically created in the interest of national security. There are so many principles of cyberspace sovereignty. It defines the security obligation of internet product and service provider. It details the internet service provider security obligation and further perfected the rules of personal information protection and established a security system for key information infrastructure. It instituted the rules for transnational transmission of data at critical information infrastructure. My dear student, for example, if there is a geo network and so millions of users are connected with the geo network. So, it is the responsibility of Reliance company to maintain the detail of its cyber infrastructure, as it is very important from national security's point of view. It should keep all the records of user login details. Now, let us see an evaluation of Chinese law, how effective it is. Honestly speaking, the law sparked complaint both internally and internationally due to its wording. Foreign companies and businesses in China expressed concern that this law might impede future investment in China, because the law now requires them to store the data on Chinese law regulated local servers, and it also forced them to cooperate with Chinese national security agencies if asked to, which could potentially compromise business secrets and sensitive information. My dear student, the law was widely criticized by social activists for limiting freedom of speech. For example, the law explicitly requires most online services operating in China to collect and verify the identity of their users, and when required to surrender such information to law enforcement, activists claim that this policy discourages people from freely expressing their thoughts in the online media. Now, let us discuss how Russia is dealing with the cybercrime and what is its strategy, because Russia is one of the strongest country worldwide and it has a deep impact on the policies. Now, the Doctrine on Information Security of Russian Federation is the main document that outlines Russia's national interest in the information area. Now, these are highlighted as: first is protection of the individual constitutional rights and freedom related issues to obtain and use of information, raising awareness international and within the country about Russia's information policy. It also talks about development of modern information technologies and information industry in the country. Protection of information resources from unauthorized access, ensuring the security of information and telecommunication system that are already deployed in Russia. On 26 July 2017, Russia adopted Federal Law number 187 FZ, which is highly talked about in internet, on the security of critical information infrastructure of Russian Federation. The law sets out the basic principles for ensuring the security of critical information infrastructure, the related power of Russian state bodies, as well as the right, obligation and responsibility of persons owning facility with critical information infrastructure like Jio in India, and communication providers and information system facility providers. Another legislative initiative in Russia was the banning of VPN, that is virtual private network services, they do not cooperate with the government, it is highly criticized. And there are also other various initiatives related to regulation of big data and even the creation of info communication code, which is a very interesting thing, which would codify the relevant aspect of information law, including cyber security issues that are currently regulated by different laws. So, it harmonizes everything. In general, the emphasis put on information warfare in the military doctrine 2010 indicates that government of the Russia Federation assigned greater focus to cyber warfare than to cyber crime. The doctrine also informs that the international cooperation is essential in preventing of information war, and the Russia is dedicated to establish international partnership in order to protect its information space. Now, we see Russia is talking about more warfare part and international collaboration. This is the crux of Russia. Now, let us see what Australia is doing, what is its strategy. Now, Australian government cyber security strategy was launched on 23rd November 2009 as an outcome of the e-security reviews 2008. The strategy articulates a number of strategic priorities, among which on the first place is threat awareness and response, set to improve the detection, analysis, mitigation and responses to sophisticated cyber threats with a focus on government critical infrastructure and other system of national interest. Other priorities include educating the Australians with information and practical tools to protect themselves online and cooperate with business to promote cyber security and promote the development of skilled cyber security workforce. The model, it is one of the most best practice model, and protection of government ICT system and promote a secure global electronic operating environment that supports Australia's national interest. And legal and law enforcement is one of the last objective identified in Australian cyber security system strategy and is set to maintain an effective legal framework. Dear students, let us look at the cyber strategy of Germany. Germany is one of the most powerful country in Europe as well as worldwide. Now, cyber security is a part of Germany's preventive security strategy, while the main priority is the protection of critical information infrastructure. The German strategic approach is focused on coordination and information sharing between private and public sector of the country, and also on coordination with foreign international security policies, in particular cooperation with United Nations, EU that we know in European Unions, the Council of Europe, the NATO and the G8 and other multinational organizations. In general, both criminal code and the cyber security strategy pay special attention to espionage and sabotage, which are identified as types of cyber attacks in cyber security strategy. Based on these documents, we can infer that Germany is more focused on protecting the country from cyber attacks than on preventing cyber crime. That means it is proactive, which is a very good practice in cyber security strategy. Now, let us look at France, which is another strong country which has a deep impact on policy making worldwide. Now, France information system defense and security strategy lists and explain 4 strategic objectives of the country in cyberspace, which is also displayed on the board. The first is to become a cyber defense world power. Second is to safeguard France's ability to make decisions through the protection of information related to its sovereignty, and to strengthen the cyber security of critical national infrastructure. The fourth focus is on ensuring security in cyberspace. This involves raising public awareness and understanding of cyber threats and improving policies and detect and block cyber attacks and develop international collaboration initiative. Now, these strategic focus of the country is clearly directed on retaining France's areas of sovereignty, protecting important business and government from espionage on the scientific, economic and commercial assets, protecting the nation from computer attacks. In 2011, France adopted a law that obliged ISP, that is Internet Service Provider, and social network to store personal data of the internet user for a period of 1 year. Let us see the Canada, one of the most silent and peaceful country of the world, how they are dealing with it. According to the Canadian strategy, cyber attacks are often inexpensive, effective, low risk and require only basic skill from an attackers to cause significant damages. This is the beauty. It does not require a lot to attack you, but it has a big impact. When you lost the data, everything is lost. At the same time, the document states that sophisticated cyber criminals are turning into skilled cyber attackers to conduct identity theft and financial fraud via cyberspace. Meanwhile, most of the other countries reviewed in this report, in this report on cybercrime worldwide, classify the aforementioned offence as cybercrime, whereas cyber attacks are considered to be only action directed against critical national infrastructure and not against individuals or business that have no significant effect on national security. Interestingly, a centralized integrated cybercrime fusion center established by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police is in charge of raising the ability of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to respond using a risk-based analysis approach to requests from Canadian Cyber Incident Response Center regarding cyber attacks against government or Canada's critical infrastructure. Now, my dear students, if we talk about international analysis of cyber policies internationally, the list is endless. There are more than 150 countries. So, to talk honestly and on realistic note, what I have selected those countries which has a deep impact on framing policies of India, so that we can understand how Indian laws has been framed. So, I have taken 6-7 countries which are very important. It was not possible to read laws of all the countries. So, I think you have a great understanding from different countries of the world how they are making their cyber strategies and fighting against cybercrime worldwide. Now, interestingly, there are so many common observations, and this is the end part of the session. I would like to start with a lovely quote by an anonymous Canadian. He once said about cybersecurity, "It's a Gordian knot around which many stakeholders pulling on the strands that seems most promising and causing the entire things to tighten even more snugly rather than loosen to reveal its internal structure." A long sentence has a deep meaning. Even though this quote date back to 1999, it is still true today. Cybersecurity poses a great puzzle to many actors from a variety of communities, and its inner secrets are far from being revealed. As a closing remark to the session till now, we talked about UN model law and the cyber laws of leading economies of the world to give an idea of cybersecurity laws at international level. I would like to conclude by highlighting few common issues in global cyber laws enforcement. In this session, we have aimed to shed some lights on the issue by analyzing what can be learned from national cybersecurity initiative that might bring us closer to global culture of cybersecurity. On the one hand, we have found a great many approaches at national level and a great degree of diversity as well. On the other hand, we have identified common themes of certain importance in all countries. The most important one are early warning approaches, legal issues, public-private partnership, and a need for more and more research. We have also identified different perspectives of the problem as they became apparent in cross-country comparison. My dear student, one key issue for all countries is the harmonization of the law to facilitate the prosecution of cyber criminal in international environment. The most important legislative instrument in this area is the Council of Europe Cybercrime Convention, the EC Convention, it is commonly known as. The risk of cyber threats have proliferated in recent years due to technological advances, the increase in perspective gained from committee cybercrime and the lower likelihood of enforcement of judicial sentences. It is close to impossible to fight cybercrime exclusively on a national level, and the lack of international cooperation does not facilitate government in their objective of securing cyberspace. This is a very bitter reality of today. As critical national infrastructure are upgraded and brought online, they have become more vulnerable and exposed to malicious attacks, which is why securing the internet is becoming a key component in cyber laws at international level. And this is the importance of this session also. It is an education initiative to make you aware of the same. Now, the final dilemma have been very serious. It identifies, due to the nature of the technological environment, military plans to engage in computer network operations, and to attack and harm an adversary means that the chances for a global culture of cybersecurity are considerably diminishing. As a result of this dilemma, there is a heated international discussion about the need to create a global cyber treaty, much like the treaty on the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, that will prevent cyber powers from engaging in cyber wars. This has the deep significance for the whole world. My dear student, let us pray for the cyber peace as well. And I wish you all a happy learning at the end of the session. Keep learning, keep rising, keep growing. Thank you everyone.